The House Oversight Committee questions Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick today as part of its investigation into convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. So committee members are coming out of that hearing right now. You see that. They're gathering to speak to reporters. So let's go ahead and listen in to what happened just moments ago.
You know why that interview was not videotaped. If Donald Trump had seen the video transcript, he would have fired Howard Lutnick. It was really embarrassing. He was asked very straightforward questions about whether he regretted misleading the American people. I mean, he said that he would never see Epstein again in 2005. And everyone knows that he took his wife and kids to see Epstein in 2012. And yet it was just contortions and lies and no acknowledgement that he misled the American public. And if you saw the exchanges that my colleagues had with him, you would see he made a farce of the English language. I mean, he was trying to define I as if saying that what he really meant is that he would not see Epstein alone, but be totally fine with having his wife and kids see Epstein. It made no sense. And then he's raised even more serious concerns about the investigation. He originally had said that Epstein engaged in blackmail and recorded videotapes. Now he's saying, well, he was wrong. He was just speculating, and Epstein actually didn't engage in blackmailing. This raises the question of what the cover-up is. Did someone tell him to say that? I've not heard that that Epstein never engaged in blackmail. Why is Howard Lutnick changing his testimony, changing his story? He's lost all credibility, and really it's a shame that the American people don't get to see what he did there. Total lack of truth and lack of honesty.
Yeah, I agree. Howard Lutnick should resign. That was absolutely mind-boggling what we just heard in the room. He was evasive, nervous, he was dishonest. He would not admit to lying, which he clearly did in the podcast. He said he was never in the room with Jeffrey Epstein ever again after the first time he met him. Yet he then admitted that he was in the room with Jeffrey Epstein. I had to ask him whether he and I were in the same room just now, because I couldn't understand his meaning of we were in the same room together. And then he said that Jeffrey Epstein was a sick man, that he would never want to be in the room with him again. Yet he was in the room with him again when he visited his island where Jeffrey Epstein raped women, underage women, and he brought his kids and his friends with him to that island when he met with Jeffrey Epstein. He said he never met with Jeffrey Epstein again socially, yet he admits that was a social visit to his island. And so he was clearly being dishonest, he was clearly being evasive, and finally he doesn't remember why he went to Jeffrey Epstein's island, which is also mind-boggling. He somehow remembers going to the island after pictures surfaced of him being at the island, but he doesn't remember why he went to the island. And we had the emails, that's why we found out he was at the island. This is absolutely absurd, and he should resign.
All right, fresh reaction from a couple of Democrats there on that House Oversight Committee. We're still waiting to hear from Republicans who are there in Washington taking all of this in. But let's go live to Capitol Hill and CBS News congressional reporter Taurean Small. Taurean, it sounds like they are coming out of there just ready to shape the narrative. Any idea whether the American public will get a chance anytime soon, like we saw with the Clintons being deposed in this case?
Yeah, the through line, Reed, has been the fact that this hasn't been as transparent as they would have liked it to be. The difference between this deposition and the ones that happened with previous President and Bill Clinton and former First Lady, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, is that those two were taped, whereas this one is purely transcribed. So it's likely that we'll see the transcription or the transcript be released at some later date. But as the Democrats pointed out, Lutnick would not be able to receive the same amount of scrutiny as the Clintons and others before have had after they talked to this panel. I think what was most stunning in what we've heard from Democrats so far is the fact that Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary for President Trump, has recanted and walked back many of his previous statements. I have to point out that he said that he hasn't had a conversation, let alone met with Jeffrey Epstein since 2005. We now know that he moved into his New York penthouse that was next door to Jeffrey Epstein in 2005, and they had a relationship that extended well into 2012, where he was found Lutnick, that is, visiting Epstein's private island. We also know, according to people familiar, that Lutnick's business ventures had continued with Epstein throughout 2018. The extent of that is still unknown, and again, Lutnick is not being accused of any wrongdoing, but it doesn't sit well with Democrats that Lutnick has changed his story several times over. I think what was also most instructive going into this hearing, we heard from James Comer, the top Republican and chairman of this committee, and he said that he also had some questions about the validity as to some of the claims that Lutnick had made. And just to lay out the timeline again, in January, the Trump administration released information related to the so-called Epstein files. That was compelled by one man we just heard from there, which is Congressman Khanna. He and Thomas Massey, the Republican from Kentucky, compelled the release of this through what is known as a discharge petition that became a resolution forcing the release of this. We've heard since then Democrats complain about the fact that not all material have been released since then. According to a few Democrats on this panel, they still say there are about 1 million or so documents that have not been made public yet. We'll see if this would at all renew that push to compel the Justice Department to follow the law now that it is law.
All right, we hope to see that transcript soon. Taurean, we know you're chasing it. Thank you so much, live from Capitol Hill.